Good morning, everyone. My name is George, and I will be your MC for today. But before we begin, I would like to invite Uncle Alan Madden to do, from the Metro Aboriginal Land Council, to do the Welcome to Country.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Alan Madden, Gadigal Elder. For my first song, that's bugging me up now. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Born and bred in Redfern, capital of Sydney. Married man. 10 children. 26 grandchildren and 17 great-great. Yes, we did have TV. Just couldn't afford the bloody electricity. Welcome to country. To me is always an honour and pleasure. Just to give you a little bit of an insight of where you are and who we are. As with all welcomes, firstly I'd like to acknowledge our First Nations and traditional owners of the lands that you may have come from or work upon, and pay my respects. To all our Aboriginal elders, all elders, past and present, also pay my respects. To all our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander brothers and sisters, from whatever Aboriginal or island nation you may have come from, welcome to Gadigal. And to all our non-Indigenous brothers and sisters here today, a very warm and sincere welcome to you to Gadigal. No matter where you've come from, whether it be across the seas, across the state, or across town, once again, a very warm and sincere welcome to you to Gadigal. And as I've mentioned many times before, was, is, and always will be Aboriginal land. Only three things shorter than that: coming, taxation, and going. It's an honour and pleasure to be here today to welcome one and all to Gadigal. Gadigal is one of 29 clans of the Eora Nation. The Eora Nation is bounded by nature's own, the Hawkesbury River to the north, the Beam to the west, and Georges River to the south. And in between those three mighty rivers is the Eora Nation. And in that nation there are 29 clans. And the clan's name we're on today is Gadigal. On behalf of members of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council and of the Gadigal mob, once again, a very warm and sincere welcome to you to Gadigal. There's an old Aboriginal saying out there, I think it's very appropriate for you mob here today. They say, where there's a will, there's relatives. So once again, on behalf of the Land Council and of the Gadigal mob, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Alan Madden, for your warm welcome to country. Being a welcome to country is always very special, and especially for an event like this where we have people from all walks of life here today. Meeting here today and hearing the welcome is, and inviting us into this space is always very special. So thank you. So my name is George, and I'm the manager Indigenous employment here at the university. My mother is from Meriam, in the eastern part of the Torres Strait, and my father is from Ghana in West Africa. I would want to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Gadigal, their elders, past, present and emerging. I also want to acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today and online. And I particularly want to mention Annie Joycey, Annie Geb, Annie Allison, and Annie Cindy here today. And for those of you who I haven't seen this morning, I want to thank you all for coming today as well. Reconciliation Week. Reconciliation Week, preceded by Sorry Day on the 26th of May, commemorates significant dates in Australian history. The 1967 referendum on the 27th of May, the anniversary of the Torres Strait Islander flag on the 29th of May, and the High Court Mabo decision, 3rd of June, known as Mabo Day. These dates recognise the strength and determination of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Reconciliation Week's theme, Be a Voice for Generations, is fitting for the generational stories, songs and experiences that we will hear today. Tomorrow, the 3rd of June, marks the 31st anniversary of the historic Mabo Day decision, a 1992 legal case that marked the first formal recognition of Indigenous land rights in Australia. Mabo and Others versus Queensland, number 2, 1992, more commonly known as Mabo, acknowledged Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's unique connection with the land as the High Court of Australia overturned the legal doctrine of Terra Nullius, land belonging to nothing, no one, which implied that no one held ownership of the land until the arrival of European settlers. Today at the University of Sydney, we are celebrating and acknowledging the conversations, the discussions, and the systemic and structural changes that have come from Uncle Koiki Mabo's legacy. Right now, we have a very special performance from Kevipool Dance Troupe. Bearing roots from the eastern islands of the Torres Strait, Darwin Island, Eric Island, and Murray Island, Mare Island, Kevipool Dance Troupe's core is grounded by family and the passion of gifting cultural knowledge to the next generation and to the world through storytelling, art, dance, song. Please welcome Kevipool Dance Troupe as they perform some dances and songs from the Torres Strait. that amazing song and dance. Thank you for showcasing Torres Strait Islander culture. Can we please give them another round? It is now my pleasure to welcome our keynote speaker for today, Merwez Whaleboat, who I should actually call Auntie Merwez. So, Auntie Merwez is a Torres Strait Islander entrepreneur, actress, educator, scholar, artist, and leader who is multi-talented in how she delivers Torres Strait Islander cultural competency and cross-cultural awareness using various mediums. Her flexibility allows her to deliver programs to a wide audience, from primary school students to government departments, organisations, and the business community. She has a double degree in a Bachelor of Arts in majoring in Performing Arts and a Bachelor of Education. Her background and greatest support is her Torres Strait Islander elders who support and oversee her work. Please welcome Merwez with me as she shares her family's personal stories and experiences of Uncle Eddie Koiki Mabo.
Hey, keep it cool. Too deadly, hey. I'm really glad to put on a show for your visitors, especially my sister Ingrid. Good morning. Thank you, Luani, for that wonderful introduction. I feel so special. Like, it's just amazing. I'm very happy to be here. It is an honour to speak to you all today. It is an honour, to speak to you all today. I jumped on the plane from Townsville yesterday. And I arrived here in Sydney, and when they opened the doors, I was like, please close the doors. It's so cold. As you can see, I'm not wearing my island dress today, for the simple fact that it's freezing, and I just felt like it'd be warm to just dress as is. So if it seems weird, I'm wearing this wraparound thing. This was given to me, so it keeps me very warm. Okay? So thank you, Luani, once again for that wonderful introduction. I'm very happy to be here, like I said, and it is an honour to speak to you all today at one of the oldest tertiary institutions in our country, built upon the lands of the Gadigal people, whose country is known for their ancient knowledge systems. This ancient knowledge has endured for thousands of years. On this country, it has also been said that wisdom and knowledge has been passed freely to young people since time immemorial. Now young people travel across this country, across the world to attend this institution, where knowledge is given. However, it comes at a price. Yes, a financial strain. However, an education is the key to your future, and I commend all the young people that are here. I commend you all for being here and your commitment to your studies. And I wish you well on your journey. To have a clear understanding of the past and to build the cultural competency of the next generation of fair-minded Australians. It is important that you know these things. That's why I'm thankful you're here. I take this opportunity to acknowledge the Gadigal people, whose breathtaking lands extends from the Great Harbour to Parramatta into the distant, the Blue Mountains. And when I look at the beautiful blue haze of these mountains, it reminds me of the salt water of my sea country, the Torres Strait. I come from the Meriam tribe, from the favour tribe of the Meriam nation of the Marians. My language group, Meriam, my totems from my father's side, favour song, or favour tribe, and the spotted eagle ray. From my mother's people, the double red tribe, the green turtle. Now, here on this country, I humbly acknowledge the Gadigal elders, the wisdom keepers, those that have made the journey to the stars, and those that are currently here holding the sacred flame of knowledge. And to those young learners that are yet to come, the enduring legacy of the Gadigal people, whose beautiful land we visit, live, work and study, and gather upon this morning to pay the respects and honour to my uncle Edward Koiki Mabo. He is known as Eddie Mabo, but to me, he is my Koiki daddy. Let us begin. I will explain my kinship connection to Koiki daddy, but for that I will have to explain the bond between him and my father and how that came to be. See, Koiki is my father's older brother. Edward Koiki Mabo was born on Murray Island in 1936 to my grandfather, Robert Sambo, and my grandmother, Poipi. Now, Poipi's maiden name was Mabo. She came from the Mabo family. Unfortunately, Nan Poipi passed a few days after childbirth due to complications. Poppy Robert, being young and now widowed, with no woman to care for the newborn, took baby Koiki to his maternal uncle, Nune Awa, and handed the child back to the family of his deceased spouse. Sometimes this occurs in our culture. The child is returned to the family as a way of bringing comfort to them for the loss of their daughter. In this case, to Benny Mabo, for the loss of his sister. And culturally, it is accepted for the Nune Awa maternal uncle to raise his sister's son as his due to his high cultural status, who by cultural right teaches his nephew how to fish, how to hunt, and provide guidance through his rite of passage and to mentor him throughout his life. The Awa, the maternal uncle, Benny Mabo, raised Koiki as his own, and Koiki was no longer a Sambo. He became a Mabo. Although he still respected and interacted with his bloodline family, the Sambo family, he held his place in the Mabo clan as son of Benny Mabo. Now, Robert Sambo, Koiki's biological father, stay with me. I can see you all looking, but stay with me. Okay? I can see you all like, I'm trying to piece it together. But please, stay with me. Simply because you may have a family tree, but I got a family jungle. Work with me. Okay? So, now Robert Sambo, Koiki's biological father, was heartbroken from the loss of his wife and his newborn son, whom he handed over to his Mabos, stayed single for many years, and eventually his heart healed, and he remarried a woman from St. Paul's Mission on Moore Island. Her name was D.A. Pedro Ninamok. Her first husband had passed, and she was also a widow, so they were both widows. They met and got married, however, had no children. At this time, they were both living high up on Green Hill on Thursday Island, and Robert Sambo's younger brother, Waier Whaleboat, was living down the road at the bottom of Green Hill. Now, Waier was adopted to another family, the Whaleboats. However, they still had close contact, being biological brothers. Poppy Robert being the older and Waier being the younger, they would visit each other often. They would drink tea and yarn. Now, Waier Papa's wife, Sarah, was heavily pregnant with the youngest child, and Poppy Robert, seeing this, asked Waier for the unborn baby. He told Waier, I'm married now. I have a wife, and the Mabos have Koiki. We have no child. You have many children. Give me this baby. He will be my son. My biological grandfather, Waier Whaleboat, agreed, as he wanted his brother to be happy. I'm not sure what my grandmother was at this time, but a disagreement was made, so I can't really say anything about that. But nevertheless, my father, Donald Whaleboat, was born and was handed back to the Sambos. So it's like a revolving door. Koiki went out to the Mabos, and Donald came back into the Sambos. And that's how it is in my family. You know, we're all one big happy family with many doors. So all our family relocated to the mainland and settled in Townsville. Townsville became our home, away from home. And many families worked on the railways because it was the only kind of employment available to Indigenous men at the time. So my father worked on the railway, and as a young man with a young wife and a young family, he saw an ad in the local paper. The advert was from James Cook University. And they were looking for Indigenous people who were interested in being school teachers. This sparked my father's interest. He knew his big brother, Koiki, worked at James Cook University as a gardener and decided to have a chat with his big brother about it. So he cut out the clipping and he took it over to his older brother and asked him, Koiki, do you think I could apply? Do you think I could be a school teacher? And Koiki Daddy replied, yes, my little brother, apply for this. It would be great for you to be a school teacher. I can only make it to the garden bed. While you are young, you have an opportunity to walk through the doors of James Cook University and get something that I didn't, an education. A few years later, my father became a teacher and eventually a principal of schools, and nobody was more happy than Koiki Daddy. And like my father before me, I too am a teacher. My older brother Donald lectures at JCU at the School of Medicine. My family has had a lot to do with James Cook University, yet here I am at the University of Sydney. Now the University Library of James Cook University was renamed Edward Koiki Mabo Library. And it's like from little things, big things grow. Drop a pebble in a pond and watch that ripple effect. I thank Koiki Daddy for supporting my dad to follow his dream of being a teacher and ultimately changing the lives of many people who loved him. The bond between the two brothers was very strong. Koiki Mabo and Warwick Whaleboat, my dad's, they were very close. They were much like their fathers. They spent a lot of time together. I remember them having a lot of discussions. There was always a lot of talking. Political discussions and debates, that's how I grew up. That's all I ever heard. If Koiki Daddy didn't agree with something, oh yeah, he'd know about it. My father would always play the devil's advocate and question his older brother about his views. Every time Koiki Daddy would explain his way of thinking and convince my father that his views was always right. I remember sitting on the back steps and my dad's was sitting downstairs underneath the house. I always sat within earshot though, out of sight but within earshot, in case they would want tea and I would be called. I waited on my dad's. I could hear them talking about the case. At that time I had no idea what case they were talking about. I really wanted to ask them though, but I can't seem disrespectful because they've had the cups of tea and talking. I was a teenager eavesdropping on an adult conversation that was none of my business. However, I listened carefully, as you do when you're young, and I began to piece together that it was a land case against the government. It sounded exciting, but it wasn't something that I could talk about because it was big people's business. I heard them talk about the case and mention the names of Uncle Noel Lewis and Uncle Henry Reynolds, who were retired James Cook University professors and close friends of Koiki Daddy. I call them both uncle out of respect for Koiki Daddy and my dad. Today, Uncle Henry and Uncle Noel are now speaking at the Mabo Orientation in Townsville. And I could have stayed home with family, but I felt it was important to be here today to speak to all of you. See, my Koiki Daddy, from what I remember, he liked to smoke cigarettes and drink tea. And my dad, being the younger brother, would listen intently while he yarned. The whole house had to be quiet as Dad's big brother was visiting. Koiki Daddy drove a light blue Nissan Bluebird. Oh, gee, I love that car. Indeed, yeah, it's just a really cute little blue car. And I remember it had a little magic mushroom on the dashboard, like old school stuff. And it was either vanilla or potpourri, but it smelled really nice. And as soon as I see that car get pulled in the driveway, I put the kettle on, and I often serve bickies and soya biscuits with butter and plum jam. You know, the plum jam that comes in the tin? Family love that stuff, don't they? Yes, it will do. My dad would often go over to Koiki Daddy's house on Hibiscus Street. And on one of his many visits, Koiki Daddy said to my dad, Donnie, you know, when I win this case, it's going to change everything. My father, being much younger than him, said to him, Koiki, what do you mean? How will it change everything? And he said, when I get rid of Terra Nullius, it will change everything. I will set everyone free. You'll see, Donnie, you'll see. And my father said to him, how? When white people don't like us, and Aboriginal people, they don't like us either. We're islanders from the Torres Strait. We come from a different place. No one likes us. And Uncle Koiki said, Terra Nullius is a lie. And it holds everyone in bondage. When they arrived, they saw us, but they chose to ignore us and pretended it was a country belonging to no one. I will remove the blindfold from their eyes with white stones, so that they will see us as we truly are. First Nations people. They will see us, and they will ask us to sit at the table, and they will accept us, warts and all. I will set them free of carrying the burden of a lie. Freedom for us, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, will come from this island mania, he said, pointing to himself. It was a 10-year-long battle for him and for our family, everyone. And Koiki Daddy, he never gave up. In fact, giving up was never part of the equation. Auntie Netta, or Mum Mabo as we called her, was Koiki Daddy's wife. She was quiet and gracious and beautiful, South Sea Aboriginal woman. I loved her very much. I loved my Mum Mabo. She played a mum to a lot of people. And she always stood by Koiki Daddy. A mother to many, loved and respected in our community, loved and respected by a lot of people. My dad, he always had his brother's back. He became very worried when Koiki Daddy was diagnosed with cancer. Everyone was worried. Koiki Daddy's health was failing and he would often fret for Dad. He would sit on the veranda of his home, look down the street of Hibiscus Street to see if Dad was coming by after school, or he would ring our home phone to see where Dad was. A few months later, Koiki Daddy passed away. And the family had sorry whispers. It was a difficult time for everyone. My father was completely devastated at the loss of his older brother, his confidant and his best mate. The conversations, discussions and debates came to an abrupt stop. So did the endless cups of tea, bickies and soda with the butter and that amazing jam. My father was still in mourning for his brother 6 months later, when the decision was handed down that Mabo and others versus Queensland had won the case, and they recognised that Maori Islanders had rights to their land. Therefore, the fabricated notion of Terra Nullius was overturned. It was all over the news and the wireless that morning. They were talking about Koiki Daddy, they had pictures of him, and we were still mourning. Saw my father come out of the room and jump into the car and drive down the street. I knew where he was going. He was going to see Mum Mabo and my older brothers and sisters. They were all hugging and crying in the front yard of Hibiscus Street. Media was everywhere, asking questions, calling my house, wanting to talk to my dad about his deceased brother. They were very disrespectful. I guess they didn't know that we were still in mourning for the loss of Koiki Daddy. We grieved for a few years, and then Mum Mabo was ready to unveil Koiki Daddy's headstone. In our culture, the tombstone unveiling ceremony is a way in which we signify the end of mourning when sorry business is finished. We let go of our grief and we move forward. At this time, I was living and working in Sydney, and I returned home as soon as I heard my father's voice on the phone say, "Merwez, come home. Koiki Daddy's tombstone ceremony is next weekend. Come home now." So I went home. My father was the MC at the graveside, and the then Prime Minister's wife, the First Lady, Mrs. Keating. I don't know if you remember her, do you? Mrs. Keating, yes. And our family members, they unveiled the tombstone. It was a beautiful ceremony, and the tombstone was simply beautiful to look at. It was black marble with a bust of Koiki Daddy's face on it, and the lettering was in gold. The whole clan was emotional that day. There was a great feasting with plenty of dancing, and my Mum Mabo, my family, my community celebrated the life of Koiki Daddy. The next morning, We walked to my dad's cousin, my uncle Boy. His English wasn't very good, and he was trying to tell my father that there was painting on Koiki Daddy's tombstone. Painting? What? Dad was worried and he quickly packed us all in the car. We drove down to the cemetery, and to our dismay, someone had come during the night and desecrated Koiki Daddy's tombstone. They vandalised his marble headstone. They removed the bust of his face, you know. They covered the polished black marble with swastikas and wrote ugly racial slurs. To see this cut everyone deeply. It left an unimaginable scar in our hearts. Could do this. I had never seen my father so upset and devastated. He was completely crushed. Mum Mabo was standing at Koiki Daddy's grave crying softly, and I put my arms around Mum and I whispered, "Oh, Mum." I knew that there were no words that could bring comfort. I hugged my sister Celuia, Koiki Daddy's youngest daughter, and we cried at the sight of such sacrilege. It was then that I heard Mum Mabo say, "Taking Dad home. You girls listen. I don't care if I put the house up for sale, but we're taking him home." So we did. Not because we wanted to, but because we had no other choice. Mum Mabo wanted to keep him safe. We all did. So Mum Mabo took Koiki Daddy back to Meriam and left him to rest on country at his beloved home in the sunrise village of Lass. A few years later, we moved back home to the community. Dad was now the principal of the island school, and we spent my Saturday mornings at Koiki Daddy's grave, cleaning, me with my spray and wipe bottle, chucks, cleaning the headstone, talking to Dad, Koiki, you know. And every Mabo Day on the 3rd of June, my father would speak about his brother, the case, the fight against the government. He told me it was important to uphold the legacy of his big brother, who fought for the rights of our people, for the rights of everyone, and for the sake of all Australians. After 150 years of being in the shadows in our country, and in 1992, getting rid of Terra Nullius meant no longer living in the shadows. This is no longer a land that belongs to no one, but a land that belongs to someone, the First Nation people of Australia. Now we have an opportunity that presents itself, a chance to have a voice when prior no voice was given, because no one would listen. Now they want to listen, now they want to hear our voice. It is an opportunity to speak, be heard and remembered and written into the Constitution. Ask yourself, what would Koiki Mabo say? I will leave that to you, the listener. For today you've heard my voice, and may it bring clear and true through the halls of this institution. May these words fill your heart with new insight into the human journey, the journey of my family, and to appreciate and be truly thankful for the knowledge that you this day have received. And with that, in closing, the past few years have been very difficult for my family. A few years ago, Mum Mabo passed, and then my dad passed too. They all journeyed to the stars and now reside in the vast universe of Tale. Even though I am still in mourning, my heart continues to grieve for them, yes. But I am here today to uphold a legacy, something that is very precious to my heart, Koiki Daddy, known to the world as Eddie Koiki Mabo. So I take this opportunity to wish you all on the 3rd of June a very happy Mabo Day. Abiswa Kayeso. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Auntie Merwez, for your engaging and uplifting keynote address. It was so lovely to hear the personal and family stories about Uncle Koiki. It's something that we don't usually hear, and it was just So beautiful, so eloquently put. So thank you for sharing with us. Torres Strait Islander culture is so diverse. Small islands, lots of diversity. And the diverse stories and experiences that make up Torres Strait Islander culture is so unique. So right now, I would like to welcome back Annie Merwez to join a panel discussion with Trisha Key and Jacob Matisek, facilitated by the wonderful Professor Jennifer Barrett, Pro Vice Chancellor, Indigenous Academic. Trisha Key is a Meriam woman, born in Brisbane, raised in the Torres Strait. Her lineage is from the Meriam and the Dauar clans on Mer and the Dauar Islands, Yarrabah south of Cairns, New Caledonia and Jamaica. She spent her childhood predominantly on Thursday Island and Maury Island and attended both primary and secondary schools on TI. She moved away from the islands in 2000 and briefly attended the Queensland University of Technology in Brisbane for a few years before the call to the islands, family responsibilities, and her beautiful grandma drew her back in 2003. Her professional career has been expansive. Over 20 years, she's worked in a variety of policy, program, business and management roles in local, state and Commonwealth government sectors, as well as private NGO sectors in Queensland and in ACT. In 2022, she graduated with a master's degree in culture, health and medicine from the Australian National University, and she's currently working for the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, working in the First Nations Policy Closing the Gap team. Thank you, Trish. And we also have Jacob Matisek, who is dialing in today from the beautiful Thursday Island. They're currently holding, every year they have a cultural festival, and I've seen photos and live streams at the moment, and it looks amazing. I need to get up there one day for that festival. So Jacob provides consultation services to various sectors, including private, corporate and government, offering expertise in addressing various issues. Jacob's professional affiliations including affiliation or membership on the ABC Advisory Board, the Cairns Marine Advisory Committee, the Fun of Queensland Medico Legal Society and the Tropical Rock Lobster Working Group. Jacob is currently steering major reforms across the NPA and the Torres Strait. He's played a significant role in the Masik Statement, Malugu Yagu Wakai, which means voice from the deep, and which is a 4-point plan that communities of the Torres Strait have put together to seek self-determination and regional sovereignty. With 15 years experience in the defence sector, both domestically and overseas, Jacob brings diverse experience and expertise to the table. And we have Professor Jennifer Barrett is of Dunghutti heritage from the Macleay River region in northern New South Wales, and has worked in various roles in the university since 2000, becoming Professor of Museum and Heritage Studies in January 2000, and serving as the Director of the University's Culture Strategy and Pro-Dean Academic in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. Core to her professional history, she's been involved with Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander communities, colleagues and leaders in teaching, research, external engagement and leadership roles in the arts and culture sectors. Professor Barrett's work supports the development of protocols, repatriation issues and that contribute to a comprehensive approach to the curriculum. Thank you all. I'll pass you on to Professor Barrett.
And online? Yoa hello all. My name's Jennifer Barrett and it's my pleasure to be here today. I want to begin by acknowledging Gadigal, that we're on a land that's never been settled, never been sold. And it's my pleasure here to be part of this panel, Dunguddy Heritage, saltwater, but certainly not from your neck of the woods, as they say. So yes, it's a great pleasure to be here. So thank you for that. And I guess I'm just trying to check out here whether we've got Jacob coming online or not. Oh, hello. How are you going? Good to see you. Okay, how are we going to do this? All right. Okay. Just moving around. It's like rearranging the furniture, the lounge room, so that we can have a bit of a yarn here. Okay, all right, now I can see everyone. So, thought I might start off with you, Ani. Thank you very much, for that session, that talk, and I think you're talking about maintaining the, sort of honouring the legacy, and I sort of thank you for what you just presented, because it certainly was honouring that legacy. Thank you. Upholding, I think, was the word that you used. I think what was also really useful for us all to hear and to think about is that interconnection between family, politics, and also what's core to what you've been talking about is having, that sort of voice in terms of family and also community, but also beyond community, and that's the sort of thing that we're talking about here today as well. The first question that I've been asking, been asked to ask you is about, you've told us about why the legacy is so important and so on, but are there sort of other things connected with that, the legacy in terms of ceremony? You talked a bit before about what's going on up there around home now. Is there kind of other ceremonies up there that you could share some information with us about that? The sort of like the food culture, the kind of activity that would be going on in community right now.
Oh, right.
Or tomorrow.
Well, everyone's prepping at the moment, getting ready for tomorrow. So the Mabo oration is down at the Quayside Terminal, so people are very excited. There's a lot of, I'm not sure whether I should turn the chair and...
I know it's a bit awkward, folks, but we're trying hard here.
So there's a lot of prepping happening today, but tomorrow's the big day. So usually for myself, what I do on my day, is whatever needs to be done, we kind of just get right into the thing and have a big celebration. There's a community celebration, and then we usually have a celebration at the hall where there's a lot of food, a lot of island food, feasting and dancing takes place. But in the morning, we usually have a march through Townsville, a Mabo Day march, which is very important, and we all come together and march because it's a significant moment we celebrate. So we have a march, and then there are speeches, and usually my dad would talk, usually was the keynote speaker, and since he's passed, I just we got a phone call that said come to the University of Sydney and have a chat, talk about this. So I thought, well, he'll be carrying on that legacy, upholding it and keeping true to it. It's about family and culture and community. So what's happening there is that they're all just getting ready. The two uncles that I mentioned previously, Professor Henry Reynolds and Professor Merwez, they're quite old school James Cook University, and they were there. They were the ones that actually told the Koiki, the land doesn't belong to you, it's Crown land. It belongs to a Queen. And they've been there from day one on the Koiki. And I kind of wish I was there because I'd love to see them again. They're very old now, but I'm here. And I know it'll be huge tomorrow because the Quayside Terminal is quite big and there are a lot of people flying in today into Townsville. myself. In the morning on Mabo Day, I go down and see Mum's grave, Mum Mabo's grave, and I sing to her favourite church song, Adasor. So I sing Adasor. Maybe we can sing it before you know that, as a group.
I'll come back to that.
Yeah, so it's something that I do on Mabo Day. I go see Mum and put some flowers down and say hello. Dad Koiki's buried up on Murray, so I can't see him, of course, but I do go down and see Mum and put flowers down every Mabo Day and thank her for all her hard work. Yeah, so that's me typically on Mabo Day. Yeah, it's emotional too, because it's family. Always is emotional, it's family.
Thank you. So Trish, I'll go to you. Upholding the legacy, what does that mean for you?
It means a range of many different things. I think for those of us who are from TI and many islands, and we've made the active decision to move away. So I'm currently based in Canberra. When I think about the legacy of our culture and the significance of this place, to me it's not something that we mark once a year. We live on it and we remember we mark the significance of it, and we remember every single day. I think I am so fortunate that we have a full-time investment in Canberra and we try and stay connected when we can, but this is the time of year where while it's great cause for celebration amongst all of our communities all around Australia, I get a little sad.
Yeah.
But if I am fortunate enough to go home, then that's good. I rub in the noses of all my colleagues and my friends. But if not, for instance this year, I'm of course very blessed to be here. All I can do is hop on social media, look at the live feed, so there's obviously the Winds of Zen Art Festival happening, and it's that stirring and that yearning, that deep connection that you miss. Merwez talked about our connection to family is what keeps us going.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's something that for every given opportunity I have, I try and link in, meet new family members, but primarily I have to rely on technology just to video call home, talk to my mom, talk to my family, see how they're doing, and just make my little Torres Strait feast at home, and my Pakalola there, shout out to Auntie and I think it's these little things that we can do that brings us comfort individually.
And I think, one of the things, the nice threads here too, is that sense that they're talking about having a voice, having the communication, capacity to communicate stories and connect to home, but also being in Canberra in doing very meaningful work is really, really key there. I think one of the other things that's quite interesting in terms of how we're looking at where we are now as well is that that notion of Terra Nullius is, as you say, that's that part of that legacy that we live with every day in terms of community. I know in terms of the work that we're trying to do here at the university, it's certainly front and centre. This is a land that's never been ceded here as well. But I'll go to you, Jacob. The legacy, upholding the legacy, what does that mean for you?
Thank you for the question. I just wanted to check that you can hear me properly.
We can, Jacob, we can. We can't see the landscape behind you, but we can see you and hear you, yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for confirming any question. For me, it means being cognizant of the achievements that Eddie Mabo, Uncle, has done, not only for the Torres Strait peoples, but for all Australians and First Nations across the country. But it's also appreciating that struggle hasn't finished, that's particularly relevant to some of the work that I've been doing in the community legal space, the justice space, and even with the Mussy statement, with the regional mayors, chairs, and the wider government, both at the highest levels of the Prime Minister's office and to the state premiers, the state of Queensland. What I mean by that is the work isn't done. That was a first step. I think if you've seen some of the comments or some of the media attention around Stan Grant's recent episode of Q&A, even from a place of love, you can see that there's definitely some issues with division within the country, particularly with the voice happening. And in saying that, it's been aware of those factors, but also trying to constantly change the way, and Stan sort of touched on this if you've seen his Q&A speech, but it's changed the way you respond to, I guess, the environment that you're in, to try and, as best you can, mitigate those factors. Factors such as what was earlier mentioned in this panel about, after the Mabo case, the Decker, breaking the grave and, something so sensitive like that. People, went to the act of vandalising Uncle Eddie's grave, which shows there's definitely some issues, but those issues still exist today. Particularly in relation to the Mabo decision, if I can go back to that. Recently, if you know, the London Tom's case went through the High Court, and it actually followed the Mabo decision, which was only in the 2020s. So you can see that, and if you don't know that case, basically, it was a very complicated decision, but to say it simply, what that decision meant was that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders can't be classified as alien and detained. And for me, that was very real, because my family's been caught up in those detention. I was helping an elderly grandfather behind, who was completely disabled, can't move, yet for somehow he ended up in a detention centre for 5 years. And I was involved in that behind the scenes, trying to use that Mabo decision to say, using justice credits formula for determining what an Indigenous person is on the three-part step. To say that if a person meets that threshold, they can't be classified as an alien and be deported. So I think the work isn't done, but without that case, my grandfather, who are close ties with him down the island, would still be in a detention centre right now. Not with his family. So I guess for me that means doing as best we can, particularly with the skills that we gain, and me, that's my law degree, but using those skills to follow that legacy and follow that respect. Uncle Eddie, Esther, thank you.
Thank you. It was a pretty compelling story there, and also I guess a lot of things that in what you just said people wouldn't understand in terms of the legal cases around confirmation of identity and things like that, and it is directly tied to acknowledgement of connection to country. So I think it's really important in many ways that this sort of story is better known across the country, and that more of our voices are heard, the diversity of voices are heard across the country, and that we do get a seat at the table, which has, I think, been one of the key sort of threads in the conversation here as well. I think you also talked, all of you have sort of talked about, referred to education as well, and I think I've been interested to hear about your reflection on how that engagement with education has been part of the long battle, the kind of work that you've done in upholding the legacy of Eddie Mabo. It was quite an amazing story. I've heard a couple of other versions of that story of Uncle Eddie being in the garden to James Cook, and we've seen that institution change, and he was part of that change. Can you talk a bit more about sort of that, the importance of education?
I'll give you a bit of a history from my family. Uncle Koiki was unhappy with the education system in Queensland and what was being taught to his children. So he started his own school. So when we talk about education, in regards to my family, we're all educators in my family. Education is the key to all things. Education is empowerment for people. So what Uncle Koiki did was that he started up the Black Community School in Townsville in the 70s. He initiated the two-way teaching system, getting non-Indigenous teachers in to teach the curriculum, but also cultural teachers from the community to teach Aboriginal culture and culture, because he felt that the two-way system was better than the one-way system. So when we talk about education, it's very close to our hearts for my family. And Uncle Koiki had a lot of friends, scholars mostly, that were very close to him, and he spent a lot of time at JCU, not just working, but also as guest speakers and talking to a lot of professors and people that worked there at the university. And of course, in doing so, he influenced my father. Influenced him so much that he became a teacher. He studied at JCU and became a teacher. So we still have a lot to do with James Cook University, quite a lot. There's a plaque, in the middle of campus with Uncle Koiki's name and the story. But there is also, the library, the big university library. It was once James Cook University Library, which is now Koiki Mabo Library. So when you go to James Cook, their campus, the library's named after him. So it is very much, a space, a culturally safe space for everyone to be at. But also for those of you who may not have known, because Uncle Koiki was the gardener there. He planted a lot of island food on campus. Then of course no one would know unless you haven't seen the food that we planted. Planted quite a lot of yams and catay everywhere. So he planted quite a lot of food on campus. Can any of you tell me why people would plant food? Someone? Anyone? Why do people plant food?
To eat it.
To eat, exactly. But to plant food on a university campus, to feed the next generations that are coming through, to feed young people, in case you're hungry, there's a yam. So thinking ahead that one day, our young people will be here, they won't be on this campus someday. I'm going to plant this. So he planted quite a lot of keynote, on campus there for young people. And that's thinking ahead, like a visionary, look into the future and go, one day. And one day, my brother's in there, one day there'll be more people coming through here, coming through doors.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about, and I guess what interests me is how you're talking not just about a plaque, you're actually talking about, changes to what's being taught, how it's being taught, how the campus is being used, and these are the sorts of things that we need to be seeing right across the country, is our knowledge being respected as an important part of the institution, and the institution being willing to shift and change and to embrace the diversity of our knowledges. Would you like to reflect on?
Yeah, I am a firm believer that education is one of the most important things and tools that we can tap into. I think from my perspective and seeing generational change that's gone through in my own family, I'm the first to have graduated with a university degree. But I know from the generations of my grandma's days where they only went up to primary school education, and then coming through my mom's generation as well, having only gone up to year 10, I believe. But then the opportunities that we have now, like this tide of change, this is where our power lies. So now we are seeing even more Aboriginal and Torres Strait people graduating and entering the education space. And that is the one thing that you have control and power over. The one thing that I'm really mindful of is in the pursuit of education that we all go through, it comes with a price. There's a cost in it. We have to move from our homes. We have to spend time away from our families. But I think at the end of the day, if you remember that you are standing on the shoulders of giants, and it's thanks to the legacies of Uncle Koiki and those that have come before us that we have all of the opportunities that we have here today.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I'm first in family as well, and fully appreciate what you're saying there. I'll just go over to Jacob and just get Jacob to reflect on education. You again referred to some of your degrees as well. Can you contribute to the reflection here?
Yeah, I'd just would like to thank the other panelists, and I can I can relate to everything they said. Going to university certainly opens pathways to not only improve your own understanding of the world, but obviously when you work in institutions, that also builds on your ability to understand how government works and how to best use those skills. But what I can say also is it's great to see that, I've had the opportunity to travel around with the member for Port Cynthia Louis over the past couple of weeks. We visited all the Torres Strait Islander schools, and to see education blooming in the head up there is great to see, and you can see that next generation stepping up. Similarly with the Mussy statement, we actually hosted that event on Mussy. We invited Tugray schools, so the senior leaders to come and do their speeches, and it was very awesome to see those senior leaders play a significant part in that event as well. But parking that formal qualifications, sort of the Western system education, being on this cultural festival as well. Even this morning, I diverted. I was on the mic was running a little late, so I had to divert in a Monday coffee shop. That is a deal to dial in here. But how amazing it was to see throughout this festival and this morning, just the kids really engaging in their culture. I mean, it's just amazing to see as well. So not only that formal education, but it's also important to incorporate our Torres Strait Islander culture, but also find balance between the two. And that's one of the challenges I guess Torres Strait Islanders have. I think it's more face. Not challenge, but one of the things we have to balance the two cultures and how that works in a modern society. Which is particularly what the Mussy statement's about as well. It's about finding the best balance between the European sort of governance structures and how that best works with our culture. And that's one of the great things. I mean, for me, it's just such a blessing to be a part of that discussion and also to play a key role in organising through these events. And thanks to for sharing this story too.
Thank you. One of the key things that we've all been talking about is voice, but we've also, and you mentioned listening. And conscious that we've got lots of people here listening as well. And I just wonder, is there something that you'd like to all sort of think about in terms of leaving something for our audience today? Any kind of key point in this upholding of the legacy, the Mabo legacy today? So any further, anything else you want people to listen to? Do you want to hear yourself one more time? I'm going to get you to sing in a minute, don't worry.
Yeah, my sister's over there. She's looking at me like, no. So everybody is, I think just with June 3, my sister, older sister Gail, Koiki Mabo has been pushing for us to be able for June 3 or to be Mabo Day, an official holiday. An official holiday. So I take this opportunity to push that now. We love holidays, don't we? Let's have a long
They give us an idea about what people acknowledge, right?
That's
so
right.
That's part of what this is.
Yeah, if we can have a holiday to celebrate the Queen's birthday or another King's birthday or something, I'm sure we could have a holiday to celebrate the life of such a great man.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that being mindful that this is Reconciliation Week, when we're considering the purpose of why we're here, and our journey as a nation, our journey as First Nations peoples of this country. The thing that I really try and hold on strong to is you got to take it back to basics. Like you bring it back to that connection, you bring it back to a relationship. When you're having conversations with people, don't listen to respond. Listen to understand. When you have that genuine approach to kind of respecting someone, engaging with them, speaking with them, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. And I think for all too often we live in such a fast-paced world, we tend to forget these little things. And I think think as we journey together today, tomorrow, throughout our significant dates, our moments in time in history as a collective, as a people, and as a culture, always bring it back to that relationship and that connection.
Yeah, didn't know what to say.
Didn't know what to say.
Jacob, what would you like people to be thinking about, to be hearing as they lead today, upholding the legacy?
Well, it's great to hear the other panelists say about the public holiday. I 100% support that. I'm lucky through the Torres Strait, it's actually a public holiday today for everybody here. But obviously, I'm involved in the march, which is fantastic. So all the workers and staff in the Torres Strait get to participate in these events. So we've got a win up here. It'll be good to see that across the nation for such a significant man like Uncle Koiki. But one thing I'd like to say just very quickly is, like to leave people with this. Often on TV, you only see the end result. You don't actually see the struggle. Now, in Eddie's case, it was a 10-year battle that he didn't actually get to see the verdict on, which many didn't know. But he took on the state Commonwealth in the first case. Took on the state in the first case, and then obviously, 10 years of litigation to get to the point where the decision was made. So there's often a big struggle in there. And after the fact, you'll often see the media misconstruing that, like saying, "Oh, we're coming for your land," Indigenous people aren't coming for your land, or things like that. You'll see that kind of commentary or that fear tactic. But when none of that was true, as most of you here will know. So what I'd just like to leave you with is that in many cases, like particularly here in the Torres Straits, we following Eddie's legacy. There's lots of battles going on, particularly in the Muslim statement. It follows Eddie's legacy. I mean, this stuff goes back to the 1930s. It's not recent. So sometimes the media would like to portray that this is, we're trying to not be Australian or draw a separate pathway. But it's not the case. I mean, the Torres Strait had the largest enlistee per capita in Australian Defence Force from World War II. All ended up champions like Eddie Mabo fighting 10 years to get to native tribal. But what that means for us is that we want to be Australian, but we want to exist in our own right as well. But we're not. We're just trying to be good Australians, and we're fighting hard for that right to coexist as Australian First Nation Australians.
Well, thank you very much. I want to ask you all to join me in thanking our panellists and to think about the listening, to think about the kinds of discussions we have at the table, whether the table is in our homes, in our communities, or in our workplaces, to think about how long the struggle has been, and what we need to do is, to keep on having conversations. We need to also keep on listening in respectful ways. So I'll just clap really loudly and hope you'll join me. Thank you. I think we've just got to move stage that way. And yes, and then I think we've got a vote of thanks coming up now as well. Thank you both. Can I go off mic now?
Thank you, Merwez, Auntie Merwez, Trish and Jacob and Professor Jen Barrett for facilitating that informative and insightful discussion. There's lots to take away, isn't there, in terms of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and what I guess Mabo Day means for us moving forward. I would now like to invite and also thank at the same time Gabrielle Russell, who is the Director and Education Lead of the National Centre for Cultural Competence, the NCCC, to do the closing remarks.
Better to do closing remarks than vote of thanks, because it'd be like all those who say aye to thanks. Raise your hand. First of all, I'd like to thank Uncle Alan Maddo for his warm welcome to country, and also add my acknowledgement to this to recognise the elders past, present and emerging of Gadigal country. And then, of course, I'd like to thank very much the Kabiku dance troupe for sharing their stories, their culture with so much joy. And even though their feet were landing on this rather hard, quite ugly carpet actually, and rather than the sands of your country, you took us there and you evoked the sand flying up as you were moving through. And so thank you very much for your generosity in sharing those stories and the love of your culture with us. And then thank you, of course, to Merwez. Oh, there you are, right in front of me. I couldn't see for a moment. Thank you so much for your beautiful sharing of your story. To take us through your family jungle, as you said, and to share the personal. So often when people are public figures and we all kind of claim ownership of Uncle Eddie Koiki Mabo and what he achieved, and so it's so beautiful to hear your personal connections, your family, and all that you have done to uphold his legacy. And so I thank you very much for sharing that, and also recognise how hard it must be also to talk about what is very emotional, as you said, and particularly at this time. And and in so many ways you showed us how you were upholding the legacy. So thank you for coming, and thank you for coming at this time as well, when it takes you away from what you might be doing in your home country and the things that are happening up there. Thank you also to the panel, to Trish, Merwez and Jacob, again to show us the personal, to bring us into the family, to show us all the ways in which you are all in your many different ways, upholding the legacy through education and through all that you do, and for sharing those stories. We really value that, and telling us about all that Uncle Eddie planted, not just physically and in the gardens and so on, but through his actions and through the legacy that he's lent us. It reminded me when you were talking about the foods that they planted in my in-laws' home country. The old people planted fruit trees along the way. The kids were coming home from school, so they always had food on their journey home from school every day, I guess in different seasons and so on. And the work hasn't been finished. And we have this opportunity now to really reflect on the last 30 years. And I'm old enough to remember the 90s and what happened when Mabo came about. And it was 215 years since the British flag was raised, and a different story began to be etched across every nation, every landscape, across every waterway in this land. And inserting native title, the Meriam people were claiming what is inalienably theirs. But how sad that they had to go through the white man's court to prove that, to show that. And I use white man's intentionally because we all know that history. They knew this to be true, they recognised this to be true, and so, and then I think about what came after that, and Paul Keating, so the jubilation of the decision, and then I guess the jubilation of Paul Keating taking it through to the Native Title Act, but all that came with that, and then the end of that time when John Howard came in, and we won't talk about that. But the fear and the reaction and the fear-mongering that happened, and the fear that somehow recognising, acknowledging and celebrating native title would affect the property titles of Aussie homeowners. And who could forget later on, and Jacob referred to this, but the fear-mongering that people would be coming for our hills hoist, and our backyards were up for grabs and all of that. And of course none of that came to pass. We know that now. We knew that then, but still in the media and certain politicians were kept bringing that up. But the Mabo decision was monumental because it tore apart all the assumptions that had been built into how this country was conceived, how it was perceived and how it was developed. It not only reminded Australians that native title existed, but what the original colonisers thought, which they perhaps thought was their inalienable right, was to dominate another country, other peoples, other laws, and that in fact those laws that they had tried to extinguish could not be extinguished. The sovereignty they tried to smother absolutely could not be and was never ceded. Last night I had the privilege of seeing a new film called Lukunara, which tells the story of Yolngu's sovereignty, of their Nara, their law. And Reverend Janini Gandara, who the story is mostly about, and others from Yolngu, from his country, said, "Our Nara, our law has never changed. We have known our law always, but your whitefellow law changes all the time. How can this be? And now we're in a place where we are being invited to change our whitefellow law again. But this time it's to allow us to correct a wrong of the past, to recognise the First Nations, people of these lands, to recognise their rightful place in this country and to hear their voices, finally and appropriately. So it's going to be a challenge to go beyond arguing about what this means in law, but it really cuts to the heart of how we see ourselves as a nation. And I just think it really asks us to question whether we have really overturned the idea of Terra Nullius in our hearts in the way that we still live our life in this country. It's there in law, but is it there in our practice? And I see the voice as part of the trinity of voice, treaty and truth. And I know if there's any theologians amongst you, you'll probably have a go at me for using that word trinity. But that's how I see it. It's three parts in one. Voice is perhaps the first step, but it's certainly not the only step, and truth and treaty must follow, or hopefully come in conjunction with it. So the voice is not the end, nor is it the beginning. Mabo reminds us of what has come before. And as we experienced in the 90s and around the Northern Territory intervention and around any other significant issue around our relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, around any of our shared histories, the conversation can be hard. We often have misinformation, we have diversions and outright racism, and we've seen that over and over again, and it's ramping up as we go through this current discussion. And so as we journey through the discussions that we need to have in coming months, I think we can really look back and draw on the courage of the Meriam people and for standing up and taking what is rightfully theirs and looking to that recognition and change, and think about how each one of us in this room and on screen and beyond in our families and so on can uphold the legacy of Uncle Eddie and Koiki Mabo, and think about what would Eddie Mabo say? Well, I hope he'd say keep working for change. And talking of change, we're doing a bit of change at the university. We've got our strategic focus on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander education and employment. We've got the fantastic new employment plan. We know we've got a lot to address. We know we've got a long way to go. We know that this is not always a culturally safe or best place for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to be. There are staff or students. But we also have immense will, we have immense capacity, we've got immense resources to address this and to do things differently and look up to a different future. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers. I'd like to really thank Luani George for putting this all together. She didn't put herself in there, so but thank you, Luani. You have done an amazing job and always do an amazing job. Thank you to all those online, and for those of you who are in the room, you've got the special treat of lunch outside. Hopefully you didn't eat it all when you're coming in, but there is lunch outside, so please have some refreshments, have a chat, and thank you all for coming. See you next year.